In this lesson, we're going to look at using the Pythagorean theorem, which is going to involve square roots. And the Pythagorean theorem is an application of our square roots, and you can only use it on right triangles. And the theorem states that a squared plus b squared equals c squared. A and b are the legs, in other words, the two sides that make up the right angle, and c is always the longest side, which is what we call the hypotenuse. So we're going to use this, and we're going to end up having to work with square roots because of all the squares that are happening. So in our first problem, we have a equals 7 and b equals 11. So if we think of our triangle, and we know that a and b are the legs, so one of them is 7 and the other one is 11, and we have to find c. So when we use the Pythagorean theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. I'm going to square my 7. I'm going to square my 11. So that's going to be 49, 121. 49 and 121 is 170 equals c squared. Now to find c, we don't want c squared, which is what we have now. To find c, I have to undo the squaring that's happening to the c. So just like in the past, if I had a multiplication and I needed to reverse that, I would divide. If I had an addition, I would have to subtract. So the opposite operation of squaring is taking the square root of both sides. That will leave us with the square root of c squared is c, and the square root of 170 would be the exact answer. And if we could simplify that, we would. 170 doesn't have any perfect square factors. The only other thing I could do is approximate the square root of 170 by putting it into my calculator. And if I do that to 3 decimal places, I get 13.038. So this is my exact answer, and this is my approximate answer. So depending on what they want me to provide, and they may ask for both, these are my two forms of my answer, either the square root of 170 or approximately 13 units would be the length of c. So now let's look at number 3 here, where it has b equals 4 and c equals 9. How will that differ from the problem that we just solved? So let's back all this up, and let's revisit our triangle. And this triangle has b is 4, so we don't know a, and c is 9. So a squared plus 4 squared equals 9 squared. So we have a squared plus 16 equals 81. We need to get the a term by itself, so that's going to leave me a squared is going to equal 65. And again, I'm going to have to take the square root to find a. The square root of a squared is a, and the square root of 65, I don't believe it has any perfect square factors. And if we wanted to approximate it, I know that it's going to be a little bit more than 8, because I know the square root of 64 is 8, so the square root of 65 is going to be just over that. And when I put it in my calculator, I get 8.062. So make sure that you're putting your values into the proper spot in the Pythagorean theorem. Don't just assume that the two values that they give you are the legs. In this case, they gave us one leg and one hypotenuse, compared to the previous example where they gave us the two legs. So it will affect your answer. Now let's look at this problem. I always find it helpful to draw a picture. We have how long is a guy wire reaching from the top of a 12-foot pole to a point on the ground 6 feet from the pole. So I have a pole. I have the ground. I know that there is a wire from the top of the pole to the ground, and they want to know what the length of that wire is. I know that my pole is 12 feet, and I know that the wire is attaching to the ground 6 feet from the pole. So when I go to use my Pythagorean theorem, I have the two legs. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So I'm going to have 12 squared plus 6 squared is going to equal the length of my wire squared. So I have 144, 36 equals c squared. 144 plus 36 will be 180. And so I'm going to need to take the square root of both sides. That's going to give me c, which is the square root of 180. Since we're applying this, it doesn't make sense. You know, we don't measure, we wouldn't say that the measurement's the square root of 180. We definitely would approximate it. So c is approximately 13.416 feet. So, and that would be the length of the wire.